Now, on Monday, MPs debated in Parliament a petition which called public inquiry into pro-Israel influence on politics after it reached 118,000 signatures. What transpired wasn't a debate, but an Israeli love fest, with participating MPs calling the petition, and you guessed it, anti-Semitic.
This is no criticism of my honourable friend who leads for the Petitions Committee in this matter. But am I alone in feeling distinctly uneasy about this debate? Yeah. Why is Israel singled out in this way? Why not Gulf countries, Iran, Eastern Europe, or the USA? This is being discussed at a time when the Jewish community are clearly under threat and are suffering numerous hideous attacks. I'm not sure I trust the motivation, Ms. Harris, behind the petition organisers, and I very much fear this whole thing smacks of an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory.
Labour MPs Alex Davies-Jones, Gareth Snell and Peter Prinsley said there shouldn't have been an inquiry. Those three MPs were there. Now, Peter Prinsley actually breached the declaration of interest in regards to a Labour Friends of Israel trip. He also said that the petition was a regurgitation of anti-Semitic tropes.
Peter Prinsley.
It's a pleasure to serve under your chair, Mrs. Harris, but I take no pleasure whatsoever in speaking of this debate with its manipulative title, which fits the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance definition of anti-Semitism, as Lord Pickles has clearly stated. Now, I must register my interest. I am, of course, a Jewish MP, I think perhaps the only Jewish MP here this afternoon, a member of the Labour Friends of Israel, the APP Chief of British Jews, and a representative on the Board of Deputies of British Jews. So I would say shame on those who have orchestrated this regurgitation of anti-Semitic trope. It is ancient, just as it is predictable. There were 57 Jews slaughtered in Bury St Edmunds in 1190, then Norwich, Lincoln and York. Our country has a terrible record of anti-Jewish hatred, and all the Jews of England were expelled in 1290. Few people know that. So anti-Semitism is not new in this country. So pro-Israel influence on politics and democracy. Just think a little bit about that title. It's familiar, we've seen it before. In the 20s and 30s, German anti-Semites and Nazis argued that the Weimar Republic had become verjudet, Jewified. In 1941, Nazi propaganda depicted Jews as secretly manipulating London, Washington and Moscow. So the idea that Jews exercise hidden influence over politics, democracy and society is not new. It's an ancient conspiracy theory repeatedly used to isolate Jews, undermine social cohesion and stoke hatred. So let me tell this House what really threatens democracy. The funding of political parties by billionaire expats, claims by Elon Musk that civil war in Britain is inevitable, the Vice President of the United States blaming the terrible murder of Henry Novak on mass migration, Russian interference in democracies across Europe, alleged Iranian links to a number of recent attacks on Jewish institutions, synagogues and communities. And yet here we are, forced to debate Israel's role in our politics and democracy. Anti-Semitism is an ancient hatred, repeatedly repackaged to distract people from their real grievances. Once again, it rears its head in Britain, reaching appalling levels in our streets, our workplaces and online. And this debate is making those divisions worse. The terrible conflict in the Middle East is no justification for this. Citizens of conscience march with genuine and heartfelt sense of outrage at the war, and I respect that. But there are those who seek to intimidate. Just try being a law-abiding Jew on a British town centre on a Saturday afternoon. Too many Jews, citizens' public spaces are not safe. So, let us come to our senses. We must reject anti-Semitism in all its forms, reject conspiracy theory dressed up as political analysis, and defend a politics based on evidence, decency and truth.
He begins that speech by saying, it's a shame, absolute shame to those who wanted this debate and petition. I say shame on you. Shame on everyone in that debate who brought up anti-Semitism. Now, the irony here is they keep bringing up the IHRA definition. But the thing is, though, one of the definitions of anti-Semitism is conflating Israel and Jewish people. He talks about how in Nazi Germany, the society was becoming Jewified. Where does it say Jew in the title of the petition? It says Israel, not Jewish people. But time and time again, we get Israel defenders try and shield their war crimes, try and shield their genocide by saying, we cannot have a debate because you're anti-Semitic. It's an anti-Semitic trope. Is it really? Now, he says that, well, singling out Israel, that's obviously anti-Semitism because Israel is the only Jewish state. It's complete nonsense. But he also contradicts himself because in that very speech, notice how he mentions Russian interference as a problem. Well, hold on a second. A moment ago, he just says, well, if we single out Israel and their influence on our politics, that's anti-Semitic. That's a trope. But by the way, Russian interference is bad. So are you racist against Russians then? Is that what you're saying? You hate all Russians? Of course not. That would be preposterous. And there is obviously Russian influence. Just like there is many states worldwide because states want to lobby for their own power. It just so happens, though, that Israel has our political system in the bind. It's just true. But he contradicts himself. Now, guess who else was at the debate? That's right, Richard Tice.
This motion is anti-Semitic in its very motivation, in its core, and as such, we should utterly reject it. And people have spoken brilliantly and passionately about that. But I think we can actually turn that terrible negative into a positive because it asks us to talk about the influence of Israel on, for example, democracy. Well, democracies thrive when our citizens are healthy. And so maybe we should celebrate the incredible brilliance and influence that Israeli scientists and entrepreneurs and people specializing in medical research, in AI applications, the work that they do, the innovation that those people create, whether they be in the state of Israel or whether they be living somewhere else, such as in London, has an incredibly positive influence on the success and health, Madam Chair, of all of us. And I think actually, because of that success and that brilliance, I think we should be saying, we want more of it. I want more innovation. I want more partnerships with brilliant Israeli scientists that can share their knowledge, their understanding. I want more entrepreneurs from Israel listing their companies on joint listings, for example, on the UK Stock Exchange, preferably, than somewhere else. I want more AI experts from Israel.
Now, Iqbal Mohammed, independent MB, called out Tice on his AI remarks.
Does he believe that we need more AI weapons that Israel has used to shoot at genitalia of children in Gaza?
Thank you. The use of AI across all of our society and all applications and industries is changing rapidly. But what I would gently suggest to him is actually that the best way to guarantee peace is to prepare for war so that our opponents respect us.
Iqbal then called out pro-Israel Labour MPs, which led to the exchange.
To condemn all forms of anti-Semitism in all forms, anywhere. My remarks referring to Israel refer to Israeli government actions and organisations, interactions with parliamentarians in this place. In 2024, Declassified UK, June 2024, revealed 13 out of the then 25 members of the Labour cabinet received hundreds of thousands in donations from pro-Israel donors, and that some 180 Britain's 650 MPs had accepted such funding during their political careers. That's 1 in 4 elected members. If I can continue, please. The 255 constituents that signed this petition and the 118,000 that signed from across the country would just like to hold our government and our system to account for these donations. What are they for and what... Okay.
Thank you, Honourable, for giving way. He made the big claim about from pro-Israeli donors. Could he just clarify what he actually means by that? Does he have a particular definition about what that actually means in terms of who those donors were and the purpose that he believes that money was given?
Iqbal Mohammed.
Thank you. I thank my honourable friend for his intervention. Donors that turn a blind eye to blatant violations of Israeli law, British law, or international law.
I love how Iqbal Mohammed just very delicately and quietly came out with facts, reason. People debate room were putting their minds over that. Now, Labour MP David Taylor took the opportunity to not only attack Labour under Jeremy Corbyn, but also independent MP Ayub Khan.
Make the point that what I'm about to say is not meant as a partisan attack, because I am just as angry about incidents of anti-Semitism in my own party as I am when I see it in others. And on that note, on this day in particular, I do want to pay tribute to the Prime Minister, who rooted out the poisonous anti-Semitism that had taken hold of our party. But I have to say, some of the contributions we've heard today, including for the member for Birmingham and Perry Barr, who talked about choosing our words carefully and then going straight into the conflation that we're talking about between the actions of the Israeli government and the Jewish people. I mean, this attack on LFI receives no money whatsoever from the Israeli government. Make the point that what I'm about to say is not meant as a
Now, he says LFI takes no money. We can't verify that because there's no transparency. So we don't know. Tory MP Mike Wood basically accused Iqbal Mohammed of anti-Semitism.
Only Israel is being singled out. The Rycroft review specifically focused on Russia and China, didn't mention Israel once, and rightly, it was correctly carried out and nobody had any objections. What's the difference?
Well, I think the difference is that we can see every day of every week, every year, that there are concerted attacks coming from Russia and from China, not only on our democratic system, on our communities around the country, across online media, trying to set one part of our community against another, and frankly, they don't care who wins. But I will say that when he spoke earlier about donors, and I think he was mostly talking at that point about donors to the Labour Party, but I know that such donors, obviously to all other parties, that they were to be defined as pro-Israel because they happened to be Jewish and hadn't questioned the actions of the Israel government. I would say it is hard to find a clearer breach of the international definition on anti-Semitism than holding Jewish people in the UK accountable for the actions of the Israel government, which is what the honourable gentleman appeared to do.
That is completely disgraceful. And also, that is what you are doing. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Okay, when we talk about Israel, we are talking about fucking Israel, not Jewish people. And you get these twats, utter twats who go, well, you're conflating Jewish people. It's like, we're not doing that, you are doing that. No one mentioned Jewish people, right? We are talking about Israel, the terrorist state of Israel. We're talking about the IDF that is murdering children, that we know it's documented, that is sniping babies in the fucking heads. And there are a few MPs who are speaking up against this, who want to do something about it. And also, just in terms of sovereignty, we shouldn't have such close links to a genocidal regime. And we've got Tory MPs saying, well, did you know that you're being really anti-Semitic? Like, honestly, these people just need to fuck off and then fuck off again. Now, MPs in the chamber calling this debate anti-Semitic is, of course, ridiculous. But even more so after what happened in Scotland. So, France's cybersecurity has accused an Israeli tech firm called Blackcore of interfering in Scottish elections, specifically targeting John Swinney. Now, France claims Blackcore targeted the SNP 4 times via proxy social media accounts. They apparently engaged in coordinated posting of at least 256 accounts on Twitter, and it distributed 1,400 comments. John Swinney's account was targeted 652 times. Why would they do this? Well, the Scottish government has withheld state grants to arms companies that provide for the IDF. Reuters claims that the Blackcore website, or the Blackcore company, scrubs their website after journalists contacted the company. Hilariously, Blackcore described itself as an elite influence cyber and technology. Sorry, start that again. An elite influence cyber and technology company. It's so hot in here. A technology company built for the modern era of information welfare. They also claim they provide cutting-edge strategies, advanced tools, and robust security to shape narratives. They're just saying the quiet part out loud, to shape narratives. Yeah, we know. Now, the Israeli government said they are waiting for the French report. Then they will consider conducting their own investigation, which means absolutely nothing. And Israel has denied it has interests interfering with other countries. But I guess they're going to deny claims they've also interfered in Colombian elections. Or what about AIPAC in America? But of course, Israel never influences foreign elections. Now, despite this, there was no mention of Blackcore in the MPs' debates. Kevin, I'm surprised this was even allowed to be debated in Parliament. What I'm not surprised is MPs calling it anti-Semitic. I want to get your reaction to this debate and obviously your reaction to the allegations from France.
Yeah, I'm not surprised it took place because I think it would have been a little bit too on the nose for them to deny the general rule that if you get, was it 100,000 signatures on a parliamentary e-petition, then you get automatically a debate in Parliament, assuming that it's actually debatable, like it's not something that would be against the law or something like that. But what they did was precisely what I would expect them to do if the influence of the Israeli lobby was so massive. They relegated it to a Westminster Hall debate rather than the main chamber, knowing that that would mean that it would get virtually no coverage in the media whatsoever, and they would stack it with loads of Labour Friends of Israel and Conservative Friends of Israel, and now, of course, the third cheek of the same arse again, the Reform members of Friends of Israel as well, of course, because where would they be without their Zionist dick riders? And then they'll allow like two funny little brown chaps to have a word as well, maybe, you know, that sort of thing. And that's precisely what did take place. Really, the absurdity and the disgusting, I don't even know how to describe it. I mean, just betrayal of Jewish people in Britain in this debate was literally summed up by the first speaker we heard, the Labour MP, who literally started off by being anti-Semitic, because as was pointed out several times in there, it's one of the definitions of anti-Semitism is the conflation of the actions of the State of Israel with Jewish people. And literally, that first MP we saw stand up said, "I'd like to declare my interest. I am a Jew." Well, I'm sorry, it didn't say the influence of Jews in politics. It said the influence of the Israeli government in politics. That's it. So you standing up and declaring that being Jewish is an interest of yours means that you're inherently saying that Jewish people and Israel are the same thing. You are doing anti-Semitism right there with the very first thing you are saying. And so it continued. The absurd boy who cried wolf allegations of anti-Semitism don't wash anymore, but of course this is Westminster and they're about 10 years behind where the actual people are, and of course they're not really representatives of the people, because as was pointed out, various of the speakers were members of Labour Friends of Israel or Conservative Friends of Israel. These people are not good faith actors. Again, that first bloke who spoke was a representative of the British Board of Deputies, a known front of the Israeli government. We have all other organisations like the so-called Campaign Against Anti-Semitism, which is of course no such thing, which operate in Britain, even down to the fact that the Prime Minister, who was thanked by the second Labour MP we heard speak, for rooting out anti-Semitism, which was a nonsense anyway, literally took a phone call from the President of Israel, Isaac Herzog, before then scuppering the SNP motion on a ceasefire in Gaza. We literally have Israeli representatives ringing up leaders of the opposition to get members of parliament to be shut down. That's it. It's so obvious. It's so nakedly obvious the influence that Israel has and our politics, and it's not some grand JQ conspiracy. Firstly, it's not that well hidden. Like, the secret protocols of the learned elders of Zion at least was a secret meeting. This isn't a secret meeting. These people are pretty open and honest about what they're about, really, in many cases. We saw from the Labour files exactly the way in which these people operate. This is a clandestine thing in some respects, but like you say with AIPAC, that again, they hold big national committees. Everyone knows exactly what they're about. They will target specifically anyone who is anti-Israel. They're not looking to control foreign countries in any other way. They're not trying to, I don't know, control transport policy. They just want governments to be as friendly as possible to Israel. That's the entirety of their existence. That's what they are there to do. We have seen groups like the UK Lawyers for Israel, specifically targeting repeatedly with vexatious lawsuits anyone who is a prominent anti-genocide campaigner here in the UK. It's very, 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 very obvious to anyone who takes any look at this how much influence they have. And yeah, from that debate, you would imagine that this was an amazing, crazy notion, even though the people telling you that are actors of the Israeli state. Because ultimately, as you pointed out, we don't know who funds Labour Friends of Israel, but they wouldn't need to be funded by the Israeli government directly for them to be paid actors of Israel, because we know that they diffuse their funding into various different places in order that you can't be directly linked back to them. So they'll set up a slush fund of sorts in different companies that they can then invest in political projects or infrastructure projects or whatever, or indeed pay spies that we know exist in all of these countries. And so it can't be linked directly back to the Israeli government. So they can plausibly say, we don't receive a penny from the Israeli government. And that may well be true. That doesn't mean they're not paid shills, because that's exactly what they are.
Well, I mean, that's their evidence. They say, well, there's no evidence. We don't take any money from the Israeli state. It's like, yes, because you can't take donations from a foreign state. That's illegal. Technically, you're a traitor if you do that. So, of course, they're not going to take direct funds from Israel. And a lot of us aren't really suggesting that. We're saying, though, that their power and influence, and yes, money it makes its way to these people, not directly through the state, but it's not just funds. It's the fact that ultimately, I think, even just one phone call can convince you to be pro-Israel. As you mentioned about Keir Starmer before the SNP motion, it was their opposition day and Labour usurped it to water it down. But there are people in Parliament who probably haven't even taken money from pro-Israel groups, but are just pro-Israel anyway, because the British state is a pro-imperialist endeavour, and so is Israel. I mean, they just have common interests. So there's also that too. But ultimately, though, the crazy thing here, though, is that we hear these same people bang on about Russia. And again, I'm not saying that Russia isn't a problem, but they bang on about Russia, and they specifically say it's Russia, are saying, well, you can't uniquely call out Israel. Oh, if you want to talk about connections to Israel, what we should be doing is inquiring all foreign powers, right? But the thing is, though, if you did that, you would omit Israel, like last time, as I believe Iqbal Mohammed said, or Ayub Khan said, that Russia and China were subjected to a report. Those two countries were called out by name. Fine. And Israel wasn't included. So now it's Israel's turn. And they're saying, and the funny thing is they say, but Israel gets a double standard, you treat Israel differently. We're saying they should be treated the same as everybody else. If China and Russia are subject to investigations, then we want Israel too. But we do that like, no, that's anti-Semitic. You can't do that. Anti-Semitism.
Literally, the as is so often the case with the right, the accusation is the confession. Right?
Yeah.
When they say you hold Israel to a different standard, what they're ultimately admitting is that they hold Israel to a different standard. They want everyone else to be investigated for their foreign influence over British democracy, but not Israel. Israel is verboten. It's not allowed. It's off limits. And again, there are so many great examples from around the world that we could go to. And given that it's a current event, the ongoing imperialist endeavour of bombing the shit out of Iranian school children was literally done because a sitting Republican senator, Lindsey Graham, God knows what compromise they have on him, I can only imagine, was literally coached Benjamin Netanyahu to manipulate and deceive the sitting American president into starting a war. I don't know how that isn't espionage. I don't know how that isn't treasonous. I don't know how he has not been held to this account, except, of course, the rule of law is a joke, and it's to be applied to one's enemies and never to oneself, naturally. And so you can see the influence that Israel has at the very highest levels across all of these governments, and yet we are supposed to deny the evidence of our own eyes. And ultimately, they are essentially the last generation of politicians now for whom this will be the case, because Israel has so massively overplayed its hand in the last 3 years, has so ludicrously overreacted to the situation, that generations now that are going to become the body politic are going to be replacing very pro-Israeli boomer generation as they begin to die off. And Israel is going to find support amongst Western governments much more difficult to come by. Not because they won't try to continue to influence them, but just their electorates have seen nothing but negativity from Israel and therefore feel nothing but negativity toward Israel.